I've never seen anything like this. This is clearly looks like it's man-made.
There's no way that's natural. There's not a chance.
Oh my God!
Beneath the shifting waters of the Red Sea lies an ancient secret that could rewrite the story of human migration. Imagine a bustling port city lost to the sea for 20,000 years, now emerging as a crucial link in the earliest trade routes between Africa and the Arabian Peninsula. Could this forgotten gateway challenge what we thought we knew about how early humans spread across continents? Scientists believe this submerged harbour not only reshaped migration patterns, but also revealed a sophisticated network of trade and exchange far earlier than previously imagined. This discovery opens a door to a lost world beneath the waves, promising to transform history as we know it. Discovery of the sunken port. Deep beneath the surface of the Red Sea, an astonishing archaeological find has emerged: the remains of an ancient port dating back approximately 20,000 years. This discovery challenges the long-held assumption that early human migration was a simple overland affair. Instead, it suggests a sophisticated maritime culture thriving in a region once thought inhospitable for large settlements. The submerged harbour lies along the southern Red Sea coast, near the modern-day border of Sudan and Eritrea, revealing evidence of a community that engaged in extensive travel and trade. Initial sonar scans and underwater excavations uncovered remnants of quays, jetties, and the outlines of stone structures, all submerged beneath about 20 meters of water. These features hint at a well-organized port city, where boats once docked and goods were exchanged. For archaeologists, this is a rare glimpse into a coastal society that existed during the last ice age, when global sea levels were drastically lower. The eventual flooding of the area transformed landscapes and erased much of these early coastal settlements from view until now. The importance of this port lies not only in its age, but also in its potential role as a hub linking Africa to the Arabian Peninsula. The discovery suggests that the Red Sea was a vital corridor for human migration and cultural exchange, far earlier than previously documented. It raises questions about the extent of seafaring capabilities among ancient populations and their ability to adapt to dynamic environments. Such activity indicates that prehistoric humans were more technologically and socially advanced than often assumed. What makes this find particularly remarkable is the way it forces us to reconsider migration timelines and patterns. Until recently, models favored predominantly land routes through northeastern Africa and the Sinai Peninsula, but the presence of this underwater port suggests that early humans may have exploited coastal waterways, using boats to traverse marine channels and islands. It introduces a new dimension to how modern humans expanded beyond Africa and colonized the wider world. Despite decades of shoreline excavations worldwide, submerged coastal sites this old are extremely rare because of rising sea levels after the last glacial period. This discovery fills a significant gap in understanding human behavior during the Upper Paleolithic, a time when migration was both risky and opportunistic. The port's existence points to a complex society capable of navigating, trading, and thriving along the Red Sea's shores. Its emergence offers a tantalizing window into a lost chapter of human history long hidden beneath the waves. Archaeologists are still piecing together the full story, carefully analyzing artifacts such as stone tools, pottery fragments, and remains of marine resources found in and around the site. The combination of underwater survey technology and traditional excavation methods has been crucial. What becomes clear is that this was not an isolated outpost, but part of a broader network that connected diverse groups across continents. The site may well represent one of the earliest known maritime trade ports in the world. The discovery reverberates beyond archaeology, touching on questions of how environments shaped human decisions and technologies. As the sea slowly reclaimed this ancient settlement, people adapted by building connections across water rather than sticking solely to land. The presence of a sunken port nudges us to rethink how geography influenced the pathways that led early humans to new lands. It's a reminder that history is sometimes hidden just beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to resurface. This submerged port's discovery opens the door to a profound revision of how interactions between Africa and Eurasia unfolded, but the evidence of trade and navigation found there marks only the beginning of this story. The traces of long-distance commerce and maritime mastery discovered here reveal a trade route that once linked continents, a network that reshaped human history. Ancient trade route uncovered. As researchers studied the underwater ruins, a clearer picture emerged of a vibrant trade network connecting African coastal communities with regions across the Red Sea. The port was more than a simple landing spot. It was a hub facilitating the exchange of valuable commodities and ideas, suggesting sustained contact between diverse cultures. Artifacts recovered indicate the trade of items such as obsidian, shells, and possibly precious stones, materials crucial for toolmaking and ornamentation in prehistoric societies. This route offered early humans a strategic passage between Africa and the Arabian Peninsula, bypassing harsh inland terrain and potentially dangerous desert crossings. Utilizing boats or rafts, communities took advantage of island stepping stones and coastal corridors along the Red Sea's southern reaches, opening channels for migration and commerce. Such maritime mobility points to a level of technological innovation that challenges previous assumptions about the capabilities of hunter-gatherer groups during the Ice Age. The trade networks inferred from this port imply regular voyages rather than occasional crossings, involving knowledge of seasonal winds, currents, and navigational landmarks. These seafaring skills likely facilitated not only material exchange, but also the spread of cultural practices and genetic material across regions. It highlights the Red Sea's role as a critical artery in early human history, providing a physical and social link that shaped migration and interaction patterns. The revelation of this trade route matches the archaeological discoveries along both coasts of the Red Sea, where identical stone implements and shared cultural items were found. One evidence is the geographic distribution of obsidian, which, being mined in one place and used on the other, confirms that there were early populations coexisting at a distance of hundreds and even 1,000 kilometers, and moving together in an intentional and cautious manner. Thus, the extent of planning and interaction is so remarkable in the case of prehistoric trade that it even surpasses barter systems of isolation. The marine environment of the Red Sea was, in addition to its saline conditions, a fruitful source of resources like fishes and other shellfolk. So twice, during the earliest days of maritime trade, the very nearby and very rich ecosystems most likely attracted settlements, and thus the development of port ecosystem infrastructure. The submerged harbour serves as a reminder of the same from nature's bounty and at man's will. Archaeological evidence shows that the site had built breakwaters and docking areas, which strongly support that the place was a port engineered to accommodate and promote regular ship pirates. All ports needed, one way or the other, the same coordinated labour, social organisation, and engineering knowledge. This pushes the complexity of societies relying largely on the aquatic trade routes back to an earlier time, and thus the region becomes an early centre of innovation. The trade route, on the one hand, was indeed a major factor for early humans in their territorial conquests and new resources exploitation. In the case of environmental stress, inland routes may have been less useful, but the coast provided an outlet for population dispersal. The city port of the coast sounds like these ancient people were adapting to their environment and resourcefulness, thus integrating maritime strategies into their survival toolkit. The perspective upside down lets us see the Red Sea changed its role from a barrier to a bridge, an ancient highway that connected peoples and deeply influenced human history. Revealing how this port played its part within that network gives new angles to the migration of cultures and technologies, which eventually led to the settling of new continents. As evidence mounts for maritime migration and trade, the implications ripple into our broader understanding of humanity's early journeys out of Africa. Impact on human migration. Theories. Traditional views of human migration out of Africa have long centered on overland routes, particularly through northeast Africa and the Sinai Peninsula. However, the discovery of a submerged port in the Red Sea's southern reaches injects new complexity into this narrative. It supports a maritime dispersal model where early humans used coastal corridors and sea crossings to leave Africa far earlier and more flexibly than previously thought. This challenges established timelines and pathways, often taught in anthropological studies. By demonstrating that seafaring was possible 20,000 years ago, the site forces a reconsideration of the skills and technologies available to humans during the late Pleistocene. It suggests that early Homo sapiens may have possessed the capacity for boat building, navigation, and organized trade well before the rise of settled civilizations. This competency would have expanded the feasible routes for migration, easing movement across otherwise daunting geographic obstacles. Recent genetic studies align with these archaeological discoveries, showing patterns of human dispersal around coastal zones consistent with maritime migration. These findings help explain the rapid colonization of regions such as southern Arabia and beyond, where inland routes would have posed greater challenges. The port indicates that populations had access to and utilized maritime resources to support these movements, offering a new dimension to understanding population dynamics. Furthermore, the presence of this trade hub implies sustained interaction rather than random movement, which may have facilitated gene flow and cultural exchange between Africa and Eurasia. It underscores migration as a complex process involving both mobility and social connections, much like modern networks. This discovery reveals that early humans were not simply migrating in isolation, but were part of evolving communities linked by sea and land. The environmental context of the last ice age, with drastically lower sea levels, would have exposed more land, but also created hurdles in other regions, making maritime routes more appealing. This explains why coastal migration may have been both a practical and preferred path during climatic fluctuations. The submerged port's location fits perfectly into this scenario, acting as a critical waypoint in a much larger migratory system. By expanding the scope of where early humans traveled and how they traveled, this discovery can rewrite chapters in our evolutionary story. It challenges archaeologists and anthropologists to search for more underwater sites that may hold answers missing from terrestrial records. Our origins and spread are likely far more intertwined with the seas than formerly appreciated. This new perspective provides a richer, more nuanced view of human adaptability and ingenuity. Instead of simply following the land, our ancestors embraced the water, crafting routes and relationships that laid the foundation for today's global networks. The sunken port opens a window into these forgotten voyages, broadening the scope of human history. Ultimately, this discovery invites us to reconsider migration not as a linear exodus, but as a multifaceted journey shaped by environment, technology, and culture. It posits the Red Sea as a gateway, a dynamic crossroads that helped catalyze humanity's spread across the globe in ways historians and scientists are only beginning to understand. Understanding human migration is incomplete without considering how environment and innovation combined to shape paths once hidden beneath the waves. Archaeological evidence and technology. The investigation of the submerged port relied on advanced archaeological techniques that made it possible to study a site hidden beneath decades of seawater. High-resolution sonar mapping outlined the underwater landscape, revealing traces of piers, quays, and possible structures from the ancient harbor. Because traditional excavation isn't possible underwater, remote sensing paired with targeted dive surveys became essential, giving researchers a surprisingly detailed view of a once active maritime community. Recovered artifacts included finely made stone tools and pottery fragments. Some pieces resembled inland styles, but showed wear patterns tied to coastal life, suggesting the inhabitants relied on both land and sea. These finds help date the settlement and connect it culturally to groups in northeast Africa and the Arabian Peninsula. The craftsmanship of the tools also hints at a skilled population capable of supporting trade and daily work at a functioning port. Organic remains, shells, fish bones, and sediment-embedded marine debris confirmed a diet heavily rooted in the sea. Together with structural traces of coastal engineering, these remains show a community able to manage its environment and sustain a thriving economy. Their relationship with the water wasn't just practical, it shaped how they lived, worked, and traded. The excavation was tough, first because of the low visibility, second because of the strong currents, and last but not least because of the delicate nature of the submerged materials. However, through coring, underwater photogrammetry, and meticulous documenting, the team was able to keep a record of the materials they had found. Virtual reconstructions were made, which would aid scientists and the public in viewing the port at its peak. Thus, effectively, a long-gone landscape was brought back to life. Materials subjected to scientific analysis gave even more insight into the site. The discovery of non-local objects like obsidian from volcanic areas hundreds of kilometers away indicates long-distance trade. Isotopic analysis of shells and organic residues gives information about the diet, movement of the people, and the environmental conditions. The combined evidence indicates a community that was not cut off from the outside, but rather connected to far-reaching exchange networks. The port's infrastructure, strength, and the need for organization to maintain it indicate social hierarchy, including skilled workers and leaders who could control the maritime routes. These discoveries extend the timeline of the sophisticated coastal societies in the Red Sea area. This combination of archaeology and modern technology brings to light a chapter of human history that is often overlooked, one that was determined by the fluctuating seas, creativity, and resilience. And it also encourages us to further investigate what is under the sea. As the story beneath the water unfolds, understanding the environmental forces that shaped this ancient harbor brings us closer to the full narrative of its rise and fall. Environmental context and sea levels. The history of this ancient port is inseparable from the dramatic shifts in sea level and climate during the last ice age and the transition into the Holocene. Around 20,000 years ago, global sea levels were roughly 120 meters lower, exposing wide tracts of continental shelf that early humans settled. This extended coastline provided the ground where the port once flourished, land that was slowly overtaken as melting glaciers caused oceans to rise. Understanding this environmental backdrop explains both the port's existence and its eventual submergence. The southern Red Sea's geology, shaped by tectonic movement and volcanic activity, created a coastline in constant motion. Fault lines, shifting land masses, and fluctuating water depths determined where safe harbors could form. Early communities had to adapt continuously, developing a resilience that allowed them to navigate and exploit a dynamic environment. As rising seas inundated coastlines worldwide, countless ancient settlements slipped beneath the water. The Red Sea port is one of the few preserved well enough for modern study, thanks to the region's relatively calm waters that minimized erosion. Its underwater state conceals much, but also protects artifacts that would have otherwise vanished. Gradual encroachment by the sea likely pushed inhabitants inland or forced them to adapt by relying more heavily on boats and shifting resources. These pressures shaped migration patterns, contributing to broader human dispersal. Paleoclimate records reveal periods of stability that supported long-term settlement, as well as episodes of aridity or storms that encouraged movement. The port's timeline aligns with these environmental swings, offering insight into how climate steered human decisions. The Red Sea's rich marine ecosystems, fisheries, mangroves, coral reefs, provided abundant food and trading opportunities, drawing people seasonally and supporting early port development. Seen through environmental history, the port becomes a story of adaptation. The same rising seas that consumed it also preserved it, leaving behind a record of human resilience and ingenuity in a shifting world. With this environmental framework in mind, we can begin to appreciate the broader significance of the port's discovery for our understanding of early human history and cultural development. Broader implications for history. The discovery of a sunken port beneath the Red Sea reshapes far more than migration routes. It challenges long-standing assumptions about when complex human societies and early global connections began. Evidence of sustained maritime trade and cultural exchange 20,000 years ago pushes back the origins of organized navigation and commerce, suggesting advanced cooperation long before Egypt, Mesopotamia, or other early civilizations emerged. This lost harbor points to Africa's coastal regions as early crossroads linking diverse communities. Trade networks forming here may have spread ideas, technologies, and even genes across vast distances, undermining the belief that prehistoric groups lived in isolation. Instead, it highlights humans' early instinct for exchange and shared innovation, revealing societies that adapted not only to changing environments, but to one another. The port also forces a re-evaluation of ancient seafaring. Constructing vessels, understanding seasonal winds, and maintaining harbor structures required knowledge passed between generations. Such skills likely laid the foundation for later maritime powers, meaning the roots of global navigation stretch far deeper into prehistory than once thought. The existence of this port contributes vital context to late Pleistocene migrations. According to this theory, maritime routes might have been the main channels for the transfer of humans, resources, and survival tactics. The early human population living on the coasts was inventive. They did not consider the sea a barrier, but a means of transportation. The port is one such example of adaptability. Besides, the find spotlights the ever-changing history of the Red Sea area, where shifting climates, flooding, and human creativity coalesced. It encourages a better appreciation of the role of environmental change in the development of the culture and suggests that many ancient cities are now submerged, waiting to be discovered. The finding reinforces the increasing role of submerged archaeology in bridging the historical gaps left by underwater sites. Excavations in the future can still provide us with evidence of trade, travel, and human tenacity that are even older than what we have now. In the end, the port's story is both a revelation and a humility. It uncovers an ancient period characterized by innovation, interconnection, and flexibility, which also hints at the fact that history does not conclude at the beach. The sections of our forebears' collective experience that are still concealed beneath the water continue to influence our identity and origin. This lost port beneath the Red Sea transforms our understanding of early human migration and trade, revealing a world more connected and technologically advanced than once thought. It reminds us how much remains hidden beneath the waves, waiting to reshape history. If you found this journey into our ancient past fascinating, please like and subscribe for more stories that uncover the mysteries of human origins. Share your thoughts below on what this discovery means to you.